2021, 4 men got together to make a radio show that nobody asked for. This is the result.
Welcome to Broad Street Radio. I'm Michael Morris with my buddy Jonathan Meanick. Jonathan, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm good. What I'm excited about is he's a new friend to you, newer.
Yeah.
But my good buddy Ken Perry from Climate Heating Cooling is here. Kenny, how are you?
Great. Good morning.
So Kenny and I, when we get together or we're on the phone, we'll spend probably between an hour to 9 hours together just talking about life in general. But I thought it was cool to get somebody on here that is, why don't we say we're in the middle of our entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah.
And it's just turning over. So it's not an example where Marty was years into it and has already been successful. Kenny's just cracking that seal. Kenny, why don't you go ahead and give your background, a little bit about how you got into the business?
Yeah. So I started as a pretty young age, actually. Got into sheet metal, started learning how to do that, really got bored with it. Started moving into doing commercial work. Really liked that. So I stayed with that for quite a long time. Kind of got bored with that after a period of time. I really wanted to do more hands-on with customers and stuff like that. So I decided to get into service. So I got into service, started doing that. And what I found in the service department is it's not so much about the customer. It was more of that sell push, not really making that customer where they're comfortable with what you're trying to do for them. It was just sell it, sell it, sell it. So August of 16, I decided I was going to give that up and start Climate Heating and Cooling. And I wanted to give back to the customer, make them feel like not every company out there is just for the sale. I wanted to go in, show them, look, there's fixes that can be done to their equipment without them spending a ton of money on what needed to be done. So that's kind of how we got started with it.
So what you're telling me, Kenny, is that, the big heating and cooling companies, they're not looking out for my best interest. They're just trying to sell me
Jonathan,
stuff.
I should let you know that corporations a lot of times don't care about people. I know that this is a
weird.
newer thing, but I'm just finding that out.
I'm
recently.
shocked.
Well, Ken, your experience, though, is that you worked for bigger companies
Yes.
and branched out. So your life was pretty much set if you wanted to stay there. Like, this is not a guy who was just a cog in the machine. He was running major projects across the city of Columbus and decided to do it for himself, which we've talked about so many times is a tremendous leap of faith. And if not for your old lady, as you like to say, Jessica, we might not be talking to you right now.
Exactly.
Right?
So she really runs things. You're just the pretty face that's out front. And
Well, I wouldn't say all that now.
I'm not even sure that Kenny can claim that he does anything, but that's Jessica's
Exactly.
If his wife was here, she would tell us what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, she truly is the backbone of the company, man. The girls in the office really, I mean, it starts there. You know, when a customer calls in, it's going to start with them in the office. And, then it goes to the technician or the installer. So they do a pretty good job of, especially because we do a variety of work. So when you get customers that are outraged, just totally upset because they already had another heating and cooling company to their home and they felt like they was taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Even though they're not mad at you, they're still steaming pissed, so they're coming at you a little heavy, but I think we're done with them. They're very pleased. So, they do a fantastic job with that. The guys do a fantastic job with that. So, I feel like at the end of the day, if we can really push ourselves to be better than everybody else in our field, and which it showed. I mean, we grew so much within the 5 years that we've been in business. We're doing something right.
Yeah. Well, like you'd said, putting the client first is the first core principle of your business. And and it's interesting. A lot of companies say that, but they don't always do it. And it doesn't matter what industry you're talking about. I mean, that's for me, that's the company I work for. That's our core principle is no matter what we do what's right for the client. And if you do that, everything else falls into place. God will take care of it.
Absolutely.
And so I like to hear that about you guys, that's your focus. Yeah. And that's probably is why you guys have done so well.
I'd like you to tell the story about, though, because there's so many reasons this shouldn't work or should not have worked.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you just left and took your last paycheck to start this business, because one of the things that I run into so many people that say if I get somebody to invest in me, I'll open this company. And you're looking for somebody else to buy into what you're doing, right? Something that doesn't exist, you're going to bring it to fruition. I just need your checkbook. You didn't do that.
Right.
You started this company literally with your last check.
Yep.
That was it. So
winging a prayer, man.
Yeah. So if it fails, you're dragging down, and you had a son at the time.
Yep.
A young son. You've got an older daughter who's going to college, and now you got your wife, and you come home and you tell her what?
Well, I kind of remember this pretty clearly, actually. So I come home and I'm like, I think I'm going to just be done with it and start our own company. And she looked at me with 3 eyes, buddy. She thought I was crazy. And she's like, well, where are we going to get the money to do this, And
how long did you pause before you just stared at her and just pointed
actually, it was, I wanted to get it out there. You know what I mean? I was just like, let's just go for it. But she backed me 100% on it. I remember we sat down and had a few conversations, what direction we wanted to go with it, with the company. She was a little scared, of course, we didn't have a ton of money. We worked every day just like everybody else. And, I wouldn't want to say we lived paycheck by paycheck, but, money was tight. And especially having a new son and daughter getting ready to go to college, we didn't have the big money to go get, start a company with millions of dollars or anything like that. So when I told her, she was a little scared at first, but she knew that I have a ton of drive in me, a lot of push. And if you knock me down, I'll get right back up, and owning a business, you're going to have knockdowns. You got to understand that you're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs. So believe it or not, I started it with $1,000. I went, got the name registered, and started moving from there. I did a couple friends' houses. They helped me get started. They needed HVAC equipment.
Is that kind of like insurance you sell to your friend?
Pretty much.
Just to get some momentum
Pretty
going?
much, yes.
You're like, I know that's new, but I know how to put in a newer one.
Exactly. No, they come to me and they really wanted new equipment and they wanted me to do it. So we did it, and that's how we started. We just started saving, and to this day, we never really. We didn't go get big loans. We just made it happen. We didn't live outside our means. You gotta keep it in your circle,
Talk about that real quick, because again, this is a lesson I learned during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Because when that first happened, my dad, who's always been there for me, says, you got to cut all this stuff. You got to pick 2 things. Pick Netflix and Disney Plus because of my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Cancel everything else. Cancel your TV, all this other. And I thought, God, that seems extreme, because, when you think that you've had TV, I've had DirecTV for 20 some years.
Yeah.
To shut it off almost felt like I was breaking up with a girlfriend. I'm like, I just won't tell him about it. But you have to make those sacrifices. And it doesn't, like, what we're talking about is entertainment, dumb things. But you have to make a sacrifice. Like, absolutely. I would always add, like, when Jonathan and I are talking about investments or that kind of thing, are you going to lose sometimes? Yeah. But I'm writing this out long term. And that's the way I had to look at it. What am I canceling? And is it going to change my life? You had to make a lot of those decisions.
Yeah. It's fascinating to hear, because I didn't know that. I knew that you made some changes, but I didn't know you really cut things down. And to hear your story about how you started with $1,000. And when I joined Edward Jones, I took almost a $40,000 pay cut, and we did cancel everything except for Netflix. That was basically it. People talk to me today. They're like, so did you watch that game? And I'm like, no, I didn't, because I don't have cable. I still don't. Right. I'm glad I got rid of it. It's the best thing I've ever done.
Do you think it's that when you cancel it, it's almost like an addiction to some hardcore drug where you're like,
absolutely.
It's like, I have to have ESPN to watch Ohio State football. And then you realize, wow, ESPN sucks.
Right.
Sponsored by ESPN.
Yeah. Brought to you by Disney Plus. That was the thing is it's like, you keep thinking you have to have these because the way I also looked at it is, am I poor now? Cause I can't afford cable. To be honest with you, that was the honest thing. It's more, by getting rid of that, it's really money back in your pocket. You have to have that mindset if you're going to exist as a small business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It also gave me part of my life back too. Right. I mean, you don't realize how much you spend on stuff that doesn't even matter. Right. So I imagine as, a business owner and having to start the way that you did, you probably have a pretty strong grasp on what's important in life and what isn't.
Absolutely. So. I mean, like all the Speedway stops, a lot of people don't realize you go to Speedway and you see how much money you spend.
You know why I'm laughing? Because his wife, when we're talking about the company, like the growth of the company from one year to the next. So really coming out of a pandemic into this year, things are humming along. So the biggest problem that we always talk about is manpower to get to all the jobs.
Yeah.
Well, before all that started, I'm in his office or whatever, and he's like, well, we had to cut back on things. And Jessica goes, do you know how many times he was stopping at Speedway a month? And it was like, she's just sitting off in the distance. And I'm like, oh, he's getting his ass ripped right now. And I'm hearing it. She's only talking to me, but she's reminding him, like, stop going to Speedway 3 times. And I thought,
absolutely.
But it was an addiction, right?
Yeah.
You had to cut that thing out.
Yep.
But you think that you deserve it. Like, here's my reward. Like a little kid. If I clean my room, I'm getting $5.
Yep.
So you justify these purchases.
Sure. Yes, you got to cut them out. You do. When you want to start something and you have full investment in it, you got to give up things that you don't want to give up, but you have to.
I want to ask you this because I kind of know this answer. And I think Jonathan knows this answer, but we've talked about this. I want the audience to understand when you were going to leave, was it, I want to start my own thing, or is it, I don't want to be here? And sometimes they're the same thing. Because I'll give you my example that I always tell. It was, I didn't want to be there. What I was passionate about doing, they were killing us off, right? So the creativity, like what we're doing now, would not exist if I was still working where I was working because there's no outlet for this. Yes. They would say, how do you get revenue off it, that kind of thing. It was a kind of churn and burn. Just sell, and get your commission check. Was there kind of a moment where you said, I want to do what I'm doing, but I don't want to do it for these people or this system?
Yeah, there was. So actually it started out as a joke, and we had a couple lunches, a couple friends of mine, and it was still a joke. And then it just come to life. We just said, let's do it. So, my biggest thing is, I think, is when I would go in, I felt like a number. And I was tired of being a number. So I figured if I'm going to be a number, I'm going to be a number for myself.
Sure.
And I really drive for my guys. And I think my guys would vouch for this. I don't want them feeling like a number.
Yeah.
They own this company just as much as I do. They put drive and great work and make a great atmosphere for the other guys too. So I think they do a lot of that too. I don't want them feeling like they're a number. They're part of something.
I want to ask this question first to Jonathan, because I think we've talked enough. I might know this. What was the scariest moment when you're changing fields? Because a lot of people don't change because of what might happen. What's the scariest thing that happened to you that you now you look back and go, I can't even believe I was worried about that?
I mean, in my industry, it's all about assets, bringing in new assets. So, the common theme is that assets cures all problems. So if you want to grow your business, you got to bring in more money. You got to bring in the people that you work with, right? And I remember very specifically when I first started, they told me I had to bring in X amount of dollars, and it was a large number, and I couldn't fathom being able to do that. And I think and this is the other thing, is to stay employed. It's not, hey, we're just going to slap you in the wrist. It's like, hey, if you want to keep your job, this is what you got to do. And I think that number was like, I don't know, 150 grand or something like that. And I had a certain amount of time to do that. And I thought, where the hell am I going to find that? Like, I don't know anybody that has that kind of money just laying around.
You're looking for Ken Perry.
Yeah,
and
right.
his Speedway dollars.
I'm over it. I'm stopping at Speedways trying to find people that's got that kind of money.
Look for
right?
the guy's buying more jerky than he should.
Right? Yeah. It's like, oh, that guy's got 2 Mountain Dews. He's got to have money, right? So it was this fear of losing my job, which I just literally, like, I jumped in both feet. I didn't look back, and I didn't have plan B. I didn't have an exit strategy. So if it didn't work, it was, because my son was 1 at the time, maybe. And so it's like,
was he working?
Not quite.
All right. So you're the sole breadwinner.
I was
Does
it
he
at that
need a
point. Well, my
job?
wife was working at that point in time, which, you got to have a sugar mama, but,
Trust me, I've called her many times. She won't return my call.
I was totally worried that, like, it's like, man, if I don't bring this money in, I'm going to lose my job. And so that pressure is what forced me to completely get out of my comfort zone and do what I'm supposed to do. Right. And so now I look back and I look at that number and I'm like, oh,
yeah, you probably do that in a phone call.
It is. It's the truth. Having people write you a check for, $500,000. It's like before, when I first started, it shocked the hell out of me that it would ever happen that way. And now it's like, oh, hey, thanks for the check. On to the next one. Right. It's like, you just, and my branch partner, Rachel, will tell you the same thing. When someone first came in to deposit a check that big, it's like, wow, this is crazy. I can't imagine seeing a check that says $1.4 million on it, but it happens. Not every day, but it happens. And it's like, wow, now it's no big deal. So just the change in perspective of that's a dramatic change for everyday people when you start working with money and you see how much money people really do have and you just don't know about it. But I imagine for you, Ken, that when you first started, it was that pressure of making sales, but balancing, still doing the right thing for the customer. Mm-hmm. And so now you've stripped away that pressure of making sales and you can just focus on doing the right thing because the business is coming.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
But what was that low moment for you? Like, that moment where you're like, I can't quit because I already dug this hole and burned every bridge and burned all the boats.
Yeah.
So you're stuck. What is that? Is there one in your head where you're just like, now you look back on like, I could solve it. It's kind of funny to talk about, but at that point you're like, I can't even tell anybody about this because I don't know how to get out of here.
Well, I think there's been quite a few actually.
More than one.
Yeah, absolutely. One that sticks in my head. I don't know. I think all of them was important. So I don't think there was more that one over the other. I just, I think I don't know, man.
What about investing in your business? Like when you had to make a big investment, like buying new vans or something like that, was that a scary moment for you? Where
what is that called?
I tell you
relevant range of what? What's that thing? Relevant range of expense or something?
Yes.
So you're doing well, but you got to put money in, so you're not really on top of it yet. And then you do this, and as you keep growing, your expenses keep growing. Yeah, that's a shout out to Frog Hauling. Marty Reed taught me that, and I always go, "What the hell was that called?"
Yeah, I think the one that had me worried the most is really when you have your contracts and you got to maintain those. I think that's the biggest one. You got to maintain your contracts. You got to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Good quality work. And sometimes your contracts don't always pay the best, but you still got to give them the same quality.
How do you balance it out with, Jonathan and I we brought up corporations because in Columbus, you've got people that have been doing this for 60, 70, 80 years and they tout that name and that brand. Mm-hmm. How do you differentiate yourself?
I don't think that we even come close to a lot of those corporations. I think them corporations are just money pushers,
Well, it's more churn and burn versus actually taking the time to analyze.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I would just hearing your story and understanding more about you and Jessica is just the fact that you were just a normal guy. You weren't living paycheck to paycheck, but maybe close, and you didn't have a ton of money. And so you're just solving a problem. You're just helping people out. And You're just a normal guy. You're not some guy. You didn't inherit a business from a family member who built it up, and you're not some spoon-fed kid who's running mom and dad's business into the ground, right? I mean, because that happens,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Families, that generationally they pass that business down, and it dilutes what the business originally was, right?
Absolutely.
So it's almost like, stepping back in time where if someone's working with you, it's like almost like back in the day when you could do stuff on a handshake, and it's sort of that good old fashioned feeling of you do what's right for me, I'll pay you for that service. We're all good. It's fantastic, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I tell you, it's funny you say the handshake, because that's out the window. You don't get that anymore.
Right.
You very, very seldom see that. Now, you do run across deals where who you're dealing with is a true person. You know what I mean? And that's what other businesses, residential, when you run into regular clients, it's a straightforward deal, that you tell them what they need, not what you think they want.
Sure.
Just what they need. They don't need any more than that. They can take their money and invest it in other things that truly would help them more than, a $20,000 system, when it's only a $500 part. That's going to last them for another 5 to 6 years.
But it's easy. It's easy because if you're motivated by the sale and by certain numbers, you can't take the time to diagnose. It's easier to sell it than to diagnose.
Yeah. And corporations do that because their overhead's so huge, they have to have that sell.
Yeah.
The trick is to keeping your overhead as low as you can possibly keep it, which you're going to have overhead. But that allows you to be able to go in and fix it instead of just pushing the replacement all the time. Now, there's certain occasions where, you look at a unit, absolutely, it needs to be replaced. It has to be,
Sure.
There's a point in time where it's just, you're going to spend too much money on repairing
Keeping it on life support.
Absolutely. So, when those occasion comes, yes, we're all for that sell, but we want to give the best deal to that homeowner. So, we have a bunch of different coupons and stuff like that we have on our website that you can get on there and get 20% off on this or whatever. So
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to give it the best deal we can possibly give.
What's your favorite part of this, of running a business?
Seeing joy in people's face that they're happy what we've done for them.
Whether probably a lot of it's relief, right? Whether it's cold or whether it's hot.
Absolutely.
You change their life, right? For temporarily.
Yep.
Jonathan, but what about you?
For me, it's being there for someone when they need it the most, right? And so in my business, unfortunately, that's usually at the end of someone's life when they pass away, and helping them make sure that their wishes were enacted the way that they wanted, and that everything is done exactly how it's supposed to be done. And so I take a lot of pride in that part of my job. I don't get paid anything to do it, but it's in my opinion, it's the single most important thing I do, is help people at a time when they need it the most. Investing things is great, and seeing them make a bunch of money is fantastic. And I love that part of helping people in that. But, it's the moment when they retire. It's the moment when they can write that check for their kids' education. It's the moment when, they know that they're dying, but they know that I'm going to be there to help their family through that time and make sure that they know that we're going to try to do everything we can to prevent a headache during a time of heartache. And then the other piece to it is just referral business. When someone goes to someone else and says, hey, you need to talk to Jonathan, that means more to me than anything else. And I don't care if it's someone who says, hey, I'm 22, I just graduated college, and I've got $25 a week. What do I do with it? Or if it's that person that says, hey, I want to introduce you to my mom and dad. They've never talked to anybody about this stuff, and they're worth a couple $1 million. Mm-hmm. The money doesn't mean anything to me. It's the person that I'm helping, and it sounds like
it's like setting them on a path, right? Like correcting the path or getting them farther along. That's all we're all trying to do every day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I happen to do it with money. You happen to do it with their household and the comfort level of where they live.
Yeah, and I do it with weed.
Yeah.
When we talk about running a business, that's not funny. When we're talking about running a business,
sorry, Nathan laughed.
Well, because Nate's high. the toughest thing right now in any business is bodies on the street, right?
Absolutely.
What is just so we're all aware at the time of recording this, nobody wants to work, right?
Yeah.
So even skilled technicians are sitting it out or they want too much money for the job, right?
Absolutely.
How do you handle that conflict and figure out, because now you're back in the truck, right? You're taking routes just to get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
What is if you look down the path, what are you looking and saying, I'll be in the truck for the next 6 months to a year if I have to, or because there's really no solution for this, right?
Right. Do I want to be in the truck? I don't mind it. I kind of get that interaction with the customer, and I really like that, and of course, there's days I can't. So, do I see a change of me ever getting out of a truck? No, I'll be honest with you, because I really enjoy it. It's not something I want to do every single day, of course. But I do it because our customers need to be taken care of. So if we're down a guy, absolutely, I'm going to strap the boots on and I'm going to go out there with the rest of them.
Which is what makes it cool, because the owner of, let's just say, X company around here, they're not hopping in a van. Yeah. They're not going into your crawl space or under your house, right? They're not changing filters or doing the duct work. They're going to send some guy out there that it's like, I don't even know his name.
Right.
No,
truck
they're wearing a white shirt like I am right now.
Well, that's what I think is funny, because in my business, I've seen so many people that they're the face or voice of these companies, and they're dressed like you are. I mean, I'm dressed like this. That's why they ignore me. They think I'm there to change the water cooler out. But when I see him, I'm like, that guy's hands haven't been dirty in 40 years, but he's going to tell you that the marketing is, I'm going to be there for you. Meanwhile, Manuel shows up in the truck and he's doing all the work and he leaves. And if it's not done right, another person comes out. It's never the same guy. At least with climate, there's only going to be a few guys you can talk to.
Absolutely.
Before we leave, how do people get in touch with you?
So you can go to climatecolumbus.com or you can call 614-852-7336.
And Jonathan, how do they get in touch with Kenny? I'm totally kidding.
Yeah. They call. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you can call him too. It's okay. He'll get a hold of me.
You guys have each other's number. It's
right.
fine.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's going to be it for Broad Street Radio for this week. Kenny, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Jonathan, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
See you next week.